There's a famous saying by Tao Te Ching that when a student is ready, the teacher will appear. But when the student is truly ready, the teacher will disappear. A true guru is one who initially will help you take the steps, only to ultimately lead you back to your inner guru. This could not be more true for our special guest today, Dr. Sachinn S Sharma, who, through his prominence in his work of numerology, has pioneered the field. This could not be more true than for our special guest today, Dr. Sachinn S Sharma, who, through his wisdom and experience, has guided over 30,000 people across 49 countries. And through his vision and dedication, has followers and students all across the globe. So, without further ado, it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce to you my mentor in the field of numerology, Dr. Sachinn S Sharma.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Amirra. This was, well, it has been a long journey. So, yeah, it's come to a point where you and I are talking about it now. So, hope to make this podcast really valuable to people. But surely, the journey is still on for me as well. I mean, you never stop learning. And the sea of learning, the sea of knowledge is vast for all of us. But thank you for your kind words.
But, sir, congratulations on being conferred with a doctorate degree earlier this year.
Yeah,
In other fields, there is a conventional pathway to attaining a PhD. Could you just briefly go over how this journey has been for you in terms of how it has led you to becoming an eminent torchbearer in the field of numerology?
honestly, don't know about that. But yeah, when you learn from experience, that's the best teacher. And my experience started as early as in class 8th in high school. So it was a time where there was no internet, there was no books to refer to. There was just a little small curio book, the Sheldon system one, and that's it. Obviously, there was no conversation of how to calculate the future. And then I just got, so I think it was destiny. I think it was just meant to be, but it went through different parts of me being into the corporate world, into the business world, and professionally, right out there for decades. But the numbers never left me. So the story always continued in terms of always wanting to read and always wanted to study. But the good thing is that when you're able to do that at your own pace in life and related to human lives, real stories, real situations, and you start learning and putting it all together, and you have the patience and, let's say, the perseverance to do it over the decades, you do come up with something which is relevant or which is more, which is applicable. So, hey, this is where I am today. But like I said, doctorate being there, there's been some little milestones before that as well. A competition with astrologers way back in 2011, my research being copyrighted in terms of the numerology classes, it's copyrighted material, then writing books, and 2 of them have come out, another 2 are on the way. Then, of course, the doctorate now. It's like finally numerology is being recognized as a science, accepted for its milestone that we have achieved. It's like a validation. It's no more, out of superstition or out of one's figment of imagination. It is a structure. So when you achieve a structure, you achieve a foundation. So where we are, this is where we are at this point.
Right, sir, because mainly after COVID, we've seen a surge. We've seen this paradigm shift that has happened in people's awakening to what numerology and similar sciences have brought onto the table. And a lot of followers are of people of rational and scientific backgrounds. So for you, what you are saying is that your background in the business world has...
Well, it didn't even come from business world. It's very simple. Let me just, take it from there. I did my hotel management from Pusa. So when I graduated doing hotels, I did hotels for almost 10 years. Then I went into sales and marketing. Then I went into the BPO, the process, business process outsourcing industry. Then I set up my own software company. And then once the software, and then we pushed on to numerology. And then by the time I'd come through numerology, I'd already started applying the numbers to businesses in any case, to business situations. And that really helped me correlate. Numbers can talk business. Numerology can be a tool to a businessman. So that's where the journey actually started, by being first on the side of business and corporate life, and then incorporating that and then bringing out the numerology part of it as a full-time work today. So it's all dots being connected at the right time, I guess.
Correct, sir. But even having said that, when we think of intuition, the general mindset has been that to link intuition to superstition, whereas logic has been the one that has been linked to science. So, what is the role of intuition in the field of the science today?
So, the interesting part of intuition is that there is no school, there is no classes in school, there is no degree in intuition. When you go into the corporate world or professional world, you want to put up a project, you want to get the approvals, you want to get your promotions, you want to pay your EMIs with these promotions. You are supposed to make a report which is data-based oriented report. So there is no space for rewarding intuition as well in the earning life or in the professional life. At the end of the day, when nothing is being rewarded or recognized in the formal sense of education, people tend to lose sight of this. But it's the moment you are in any negotiation, any deal making, any conversation with a person personally or professionally, you already know the person, you already have a sense of how the person is. That is intuition. You put that down deep, center yourself, get intuition to deep down, make it into a way of life in the sense of that you can sense and connect the logic to that intuition, which means you can put words and structure to that intuition in your mind, which is being centered or very strongly being centered. You can use intuition again. But the problem is that when people are always busy in their social media, for example, or the normal day-to-day lives, the space for being centered, being silent, being quiet within is not there. It's not on the calendar, it's not on a daily routine, it's not in a daily discipline. When you don't have any space of being quiet and centered, so even if these fleeting thoughts come, they're not connected to a word or an action plan. It's like that when you take a bath, you have the greatest ideas when you're taking a bath. Or when you're in a washroom, ideas come dime a dozen because that's the quietness the mind is seeking so desperately. You are into that toilet and you're out of it, and it says, wow, the ideas were then, it's gone.
Right.
But now, if that was a part of your daily routine and structure, that quietness, that being there, intuition would have become your best friend. That's where it stands.
Right. And you had just mentioned our world of how we have gotten taken over by social media. And that leads me to my next question, which is that, we're all familiar with the fact that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. But something which is even worse and more dangerous than that is knowledge and power in the wrong hands. And, at the switch of a button on your Instagram reels, you find people talking about lucky numbers and lucky colors. And there is a surge of information and people out there. So there is this natural fear mongering which has happened over a period of time. People have been duped. We can't take away from that. And there are certain factors that have gone against this field of numerology and other sciences as well, which really haven't come in the forefront. So, how does one really fine tune their search into finding somebody who's a reputable numerologist?
So there too, you are asking two different, things in one. One is I welcome anyone who's making any comment on the social media. It's okay. You are trying to make some head and tail of something and trying to tell that to people. But yeah, so social media is becoming a proxy government. It's becoming a proxy way of life. It governs you. Now, the fact of the matter is that you're bombarded by information from so many directions. In any case, you can't figure out what's really important for you,
right,
because you don't have the time to step back and decide. And especially if you're an Instagram person, you're going to do it once, in seconds. So that bombardment is not going to cease. It's going to go more and more powerful. So, take a step back and accept it. There's no point fighting about it. There's no point saying, hey, the information on the net is half truth, half, all of that. The very simple things, if you want to understand if the person is right, you get a good sense of intuition about a lawyer when you go and meet one. They're lawyers. And then you go and meet a doctor, they're doctors. The same books for the same people, but the caliber is different. If you have that person, I'll tell you, it's a very interesting thing that one of the remedies that that works. You want a good astrologer, you want a good doctor, you want a good lawyer, you want a good numerologist, go to one who's very finicky, who's very sunky. You understand what I'm saying? When you go to people who are basically sunky log, that's an element of genius in the subconscious.
Right.
They are not in line with what the world expects them to do. They have their own way of thinking, and that thinking leads to genius. So if you have that, and you will realize that when you start looking at all the big names in the industry, any industry, even politics, you realize they are very sunky.
Right.
I'm not going to name people in the politics, but you see what kind of traits the leaders have. They have very strong individual traits. They are not fitting into a structure kind of people. So you get that sense of how do you recognize a numerologist. But the fact of the matter is that if the guy says he can, if he is able to put his neck out day in and day out and predict, that's a numerologist. If he can't predict, if the numerologist is only about changing a name, changing the spellings, that's not correct. You cannot change a name or a spelling of a name without first knowing how the next 30, 40 years of the person is going to be. Because when you convert a letter of the English alphabet into a number into a planet, you are aligning that planet, which is your name, into and with your natural planets, not the one that you were just born with, because that was many years ago. If you are 30 and 40 years of age, you're not aligning it with the future, which is your destiny. Could be another 20, 30 years away where you reach your full potential in life. You're aligning it with the times that you are in. And what you do with that time is your free will, but what you do with that time is a decision that you make, has consequences. When you start looking at consequences, and the name is affecting you as a negative or a positive name, that consequences itself has further consequences. So by the time you are 20, 30 years down the line, it's become a mess, even if you had great numbers to start with. So it's never going to be, so it's always like you say, life is a potential of opportunities. Life is not a straight line in any case. So even if the person is born on the same date, month, year, and has the same name, the decisions we take because of our social environment circle, because of our religion, because of our sex, because of our economic conditions, whatever have you, those decisions also have consequences. And so it's just not easy. The guy is just about name change. He's not talking about past life karmic debts. Doesn't understand the impact of that in your present life. Doesn't understand how to calculate the future. You got yourself into the wrong person's hand.
So, sir, what you're essentially saying is that it's really being overdone today?
It's been too simplistically explained. With a lot of respect that I have for astrology, which is an amazing, amazing science, it takes 25 years to master. How can you just master something in a 2-day or 4-day class or a 1-month class, and then expect one to understand that you are as good in predicting the future and remedies as someone who's been practicing for the last 10, 15, 20 years? I'm talking about numerology now. In the same way, it's too simplistically being understood or misunderstood as a science of name keeping. It's not. Your name keeping itself is a planet which you have to align to your natural numbers. The big daddy is the natural numbers, not your name. It's been positioned differently, that name is everything. So people do come for saying, oh, you know what, what's my name? Or, you know what, what's my cell phone number? Completely wrong. A cell phone number is just an instrument in your hand. It's not you. It's not your karmic debts. It's not the reason you were given a human life and billions of others were never given a human life. It's not. A cell phone number is just an instrument which is an aid. But you start making it as a cell phone number numerology, it's a joke. You start making a name as the numerology, it's not correct. It's incorrect.
Correct. And I think a lot of the hook is being created just because of that.
It's a hook.
It's a hook. So, there are instances where would you say that, when one thinks of numerology, one is talking and thinking about name change. You say, oh, I'm going to go to a numerologist, he's going to change my name. Because when you're looking at astrology, the essential element there becomes the time of birth. So would you also say that there are certain circumstances in which you absolutely advise there should be a name change done? And what would be some of those circumstances?
Yeah, the name change is critical. It's absolutely essential. Typically what happens in astrology also was that in astrology, the name was given as per Patri. There was also an element of, aapki Patri mein ye naam aaya hai. That was always a part of it. And then those names came out of fashion. They were oldish sounding names. So it started as a journey of, let's give the first letter of the name. And when you start giving a letter to the name and don't recognize the rest of the letters, because the rest of the letters are also numbers, and those numbers are also planets. So you make a mistake. At the end of the day, the difference between astrology and astrology is, more intricate in the sense that it does talk about the time and place of birth, which is latitude and longitude. So at that point in time when you're born, in astrology, all the planets are in their elliptical orbits. They are orbiting. They see you at that point in time. They access you at that point in time, and they keep moving back into their orbits, which is the planets move from one. So the whole 3D astrology is then represented on a paper, on a 2D paper. When you do astrology representation like that, and the planets keep moving, that has given rise to the modern astronomy. It's that intricate. But the issue with astrology is, it's not with astrology actually, the issue with interpreting astrology is, it has more variables than numerology. So you have to have an accurate time of birth, and the time changes every 2 minutes.
Right.
So now, for example, you're born in a hospital, most of us are, and the nurse is going to look at the watch and say, okay, 12:05, and that watch may be slow, but you wouldn't know till after 5 days. You say, oh man, this watch is running a bit slow. How many people have been born at that time? That's one. Number two, a normal watch which has been calibrated to give you on your record, this is what your path is, it's garbage in, garbage out if that watch was not accurate anyways. When the astrology charts changes after 2 minutes, you will get rubbish. All your life you'll go to astrologers, they'll see the charts and the astrology is not wrong, and they'll predict something which is correct, but that is not you. Because the time was not accurately. So the advantage of numerology is, it does not depend on the time. That variable is less. Lesser the variables, more the accuracy. That's the issue. Now, if you want to move away from astrology and get into the world of numerology, then numerology is all about understand the past life effects first, what we were born for, understand the power of the date of birth and the core planets, understand what percentage that they have as a consequence in our life, what percentage and what time, which time of life will they move into our lives and when they'll go away. Understand the karmic debts and other blessings of God, let's say we call them master numbers, etc., that you may be born with. That's an asset where you can move beyond your glass ceiling with much faster without even understanding that you had this potential. When you understand being at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, is all numerology. Now that is for a businessman, for an interview, for a marriage, for a relationship, it's all about that. And that's where the empowerment of numerology is a science. Who asked you to say that, oh, the numerologist is saying so let's forget about our logical mind, let's not work hard, let's not work with the data. No, we are saying that we need to align the planets along with your data and hard work and logical mind, and then things become smoother. That's how a numerologist should be positioned. That's how numerologists should say. They don't become gods by saying, you got to change the name. No, you need to know first as a numerologist, Mr. Numerologist, that how do you calculate the future. Also the facts. Second fun fact. You know what happens when you have a karmic debt from the past life? The current planets don't work. That's exactly what happens when you go to an astrologer. Sir, Pitru dosh hai, Kal Sarp dosh hai, ye dosh hai. वो दोष जब तक आप पूजा नहीं करोगे, आपके planets काम नहीं करते. The same concept is here. When you don't take care of the karmic debts from the past life, your current planets will not work. So how are you going to align yourself with a new name and not understand the fact that your blockages are not coming from the name, they're coming from elsewhere? If a numerologist doesn't even know that part or not ready to go deeper, it's ineffective conversation. So naturally they'll go back to say, let's select a good phone number, let's select a good car number, let's select, the small stuff. That is not life. Numerology is a much, much deeper and a more expansive than that. Yeah.
But sir, when we're talking in terms of the world of remedies, and you just said that you have to theek karo whatever your past karma is, can you change something by remedies? What is already predestined for you?
I'll tell you what the remedies are. Okay, and this is because it works for me, and I've been, like I said, practicing now for 3 decades now, almost 35 years plus now. Knowledge is the biggest remedy. Just knowing what the future lies, you can do a lot. Knowing that this is not the year to invest, you don't go and invest. Knowing that this is not the year to start, a venture or a partnership, you don't invest and go. Knowing that the partner's numbers are not compatible to your numbers, you don't go into a partnership, even if that person is your spouse or your best friend. Firstly, the world of remedies has been misunderstood. misquoted, mostly in astrology.
So what works, sir?
No, everything works. The knowledge works of you understand a chart of a person. That is what works. So the first thing is you and I having a conversation. The day works. The time works. Why? Because we just mapped something. Suppose you have a situation where health is becoming an issue and you want to remedy health. Now, knowing about the health part of it is not going to remedy it. Now, suppose I have a health issue. You know how numerology helps, or for that matter, astrology helps. You will understand which planets are affecting your health. There's a planet that affects a particular part of your body. Every planet has a impact on a particular part of the body. The name has a different impact on. The name also comes to a planet. It has a particular effect on the body. So you know the symptoms. You know which planets are working, which are not working. You can then remedy to, with the right doctor's advice or advise the doctor. You have to build up a connect or a bridge when it comes to remedy. Otherwise, it becomes only shrouded with superstition and hogwash.
Correct. And speaking of hogwash and superstition, how far should one stretch it? Because in the world of remedies, you're sold proxy pujas, you're sold the whole concept of follow a certain lucky number. And it creates a sort of a hook for a person to keep coming back, leading to a lot of fear mongering. And that makes people really wary of the science.
Maybe you're just seeing it from the other side, and you may see a lot of people who you feel are, it's like they are getting hooked on to something. I would agree to a point that you're incapacitating the society in terms of their ability to think and the ability to live their life to the fullest potential. Now, see the flip side. If this was actually a working science, there was a way to validate quality, then it can empower the society as well. So why do you look at that? Because the fact of the matter was that this science always existed. It's 20,000, 25,000 years old. So when something that was as old as that, and it's on the way to becoming rediscovered, the issue is that the structure and the process is not reached yet. I am setting up a university in my agenda for 2025. This is called the Agrani School of Karmic and Spiritual Studies, where we are going to structure and we are going to validate, we are going to certify, we are going to compete students and stuff like that on live cases, live situations. So the whole idea of bringing it is a science, make no mistake about it. It's been misunderstood, make no mistake about it. It's been overstretched by the hooks, like you mentioned, clearly, yes. And hence there is a need to do so. So rather than being in a conversation and saying that, oh, this is not working or this is too much of selling, the fact will remain that actually it works. And if you were able to harness this properly, it actually works to transform societies. So that's the endeavor as well. But hope that answers.
Absolutely. And speaking of how it relates to the logical world of science and how it is a science, let's say we draw a parallel to the other industries. You talk about medical, you talk about financial, even weather forecasting for that matter. There's a certain pool of data that we rely on that creates certain patterns. So when it comes to numerology, and you're talking in terms of the name being one planet, or you're talking about the date of birth being one planet, is there a pool of data that you scientifically rely upon when you're gauging, let's say, a predicament of the future?
Every day of my life, several times a day, because I'm doing the future, predictions for the last 12, 15 years every day. Every day of my life, I'm looking at the data only. I'm looking at the data connected to the planets. I'm looking at my past experiences. I'm intuiting the whole thing. And I'm bringing that intuition and the data put together in a structured manner to the person. And so for example, if I'm looking at a cesarean date, and the child's born now, and then the next stage is, of course, we need to give a good name to the child so the whole structure is nice. Now, I've got people who are now 19-year-olds,
right,
where I had predicted the cesarean man, and they've come here, they come to me and say, you predicted my date and all that. This is my time now. This is where I want to study. Please guide me for the next step. So every day of our life, everything is data. Numbers, of course, numbers are data, but numbers are not plain numbers. Numbers are planets. Planets have their own attitude. They have their own flavor, which is an intuitive science. You put it all together, it's a brilliant way of putting things.
So when you're Googling or you want to study numerology, you Google it and you find that there are different fields, the different kinds of numerology, like the Pythagorean, the Chaldean, the Kabbalah, for example. But you have a very different way to teach and Could you go over a little bit about
Yeah, so
what
it's
you...
not. I don't have a different way. I just understood the value of both the Sheldon and the Pythagoras system. So I'll tell you what. The fact that there's a Sheldon system or a Kabbalah system or there's a Pythagoras system, there's a Hindu Vedic system, which means the science was always there. It was accepted science in the civilizations. That's why it's there, right? You just don't build up a system over thousands of years when there was no validity to it. So, which means every civilization was trying to do it through numbers and planets, which is the first validation. It's a science. Second is when you go to a point where you've spent so many years trying to understand, oh, this is the element of Pythagoras that's really more accurate, and the Sheldon system is more accurate in the name keeping, and the Pythagoras is brilliant in terms of calculation in the future. And then there's a spiritual, numerology part of it, which is great at understanding the karmics and the karmas and the karmic debts. You build it up together, and that's what I do, and that's what I got copyrighted for. Because yeah, my system is kind of unique, but now obviously time tested for 2 decades. So it's like it's been run through a system. So yeah, it works. But at the end of the day, none of the systems out there are without a science, without a foundation. They're all there, and we just picked up the good elements of whichever I could in my limited life, and I've seek to kind of empower individual after individual after individual with that information.
And I think you said it so beautifully when you spoke in terms of how the science has already existed. And we're not discovering something, we're rediscovering
Absolutely.
something that has always been there.
Absolutely.
So when we talk in terms of the timeline, and you talk about numerology, it doesn't have as many variables, which makes it more accurate and more practical for daily living. So would you say that it's more prevalent for us to figure out what our past and our past karma was, or how we are today, why are we structured a particular way, or is it more of a predictive science?
Say it again. I missed you completely.
Okay, so when we talk in terms of timelines, when it comes to numerology, in astrology, we're looking at what our past karma was. And you mentioned karmic debts and master numbers, even when it comes to numerology. There's a certain way to look at a person's character in the present. But is it also as accurate when you're talking in terms of predicting the future?
Yeah, it is. In the sense, what the way you look at the future actually is that it's a very structured way of 5 cycles within one cycle. So when you say Mahadasha, Antardasha, that Antardasha process exactly exists also in numerology. So you have the main cycle starting from the 7th year, 25th year, 36th year, 42nd year, 46th year, 50th year, 60th year, 90th year. You have these cycles. And then between these cycles, you have a 9-year cycle or a 4-year cycle. Oh yes, when you start putting it all together and then put it and kind of put it in line with the destiny or the full potential that you're born for, you start predicting.
So, let's just get into the modern day problem today. You have parents on one end who are really anxious about their kids. They are worried sick. The children have, poor things, gotten into this rat race. They're exhausted. They're going from one class to the other. There's no sense of direction. And it's owing to a lot of mental health problems for both kids and parents. So parents come to you and probably say things like, our child is not doing well in academics. And this is a modern day problem which is leading to a big situation in the future. So what is the role of numerology when it comes to counseling parents and counseling
Understood.
children?
Awesome question. Yeah, very relevant. And I'll tell you one line to sum it all. It's so easy. You want your child to do well, go to a numerologist. Don't go to a child counselor. First, go to a numerologist. Child counselors have their own values, of course. And why do you want to do that? It's because a numerologist, if he knows that, knows how to see the future. That's the first stepping point. You can be an amazing wise person on earth. You can be an amazing spiritual person on earth. You can be an amazing healer. You can be an amazing intellectual person, but you don't know how to calculate the future. At the end of the day, if you know future, you know where you need to build up the bridges to that future. Now, obviously, you need to have that intellect to understand that this lies the potential. Here lies the child and the numbers. Here lies his environment, his friend circle, his school, his city, his economic conditions, the way the parents are. You understand that. Now, that's a part of an intuitive part of a numerologist. He has to understand that first and then see, is this in line with what the child can or cannot achieve? Which means what? It becomes a counseling for the whole family. When you have a child and you have a special powers and you want to create the conditions for that child to be that power, you need to counsel the parents to pipe down. Leave the child a bit, give the child its own
Yeah.
space, do something else, do more practical stuff like maybe martial arts, who knows, maybe the class chess, a class of chess, who knows, but it all works like that. The first thing is you need to understand the family. A child counselor cannot understand the family. They're not made like that. They're not made like that. They do not know what the potential is. It's a guesstimate for them. For a numerologist, it's an accurate science. It lays like the biggest difference. So to a point where I have my company completely driven around by a mission called One Family, One Numerologist, for which I have written a book also. We have automated courses, we have training classes, we have live products and books. We have so many. The whole idea is the more people can understand this science as a science, the more empowered the society is. They need to get to a point where numerology becomes a starting point to understand not only the child's journey but their own journey as well. They need to get to a point where they need to say, you know what, my hard work and my smart work and my political maneuvering perhaps has only gotten me to this far, and I have that many productive years left in my life. Or in those productive years of my life, I have left and sacrificed too much on the other side.
Right.
When you see the mirror and you analyze your own life, you know you need an outside-in perspective to that. An outside-in perspective is a counselor, no better counselor than a numerologist.
And I think that's so good because you're putting the power back into people's hand, because there is one side of the world where you're creating a hook for people to keep coming back and relying on them. And there, sir, you created a movement of sorts.
Yeah, we have.
When you started the whole thing with one numerologist, one family, making sure that each person depended on themselves.
One family, one numerologist.
Where they created one numerologist per family. It was a movement of one sort, right? Where you really put the power back into their hands. Absolutely. For them to rely on themselves.
It's still going on. It's still going on. The university is now a metamorphosis or a more sophisticated metamorphosis of empowering people with the other sciences as well. Why not? Why just numerology? So yeah, we have other sciences in the part of the university curriculum as well. That will soon come out. But yes, I'm saying that take a step back, understand what it is to meet a numerologist, understand what it is to analyze how good a numerologist is, or what does he know, or what she does or what she doesn't. Then just go to them. It'll work so nicely, cut off so many wrongly committed or wrongly dedicated years, etc., etc.
Yeah. So, sir, what's your prediction in terms of how long it's going to take for schools to adopt this science as a mainstream?
You know what? There's different. The way I see things is that the schools are going to diminish eventually. It's not a question of the process going into the schools. It's all going to be virtual. It's all going to be self-taught. It's all going to be there. So we're already there. We're already 5 steps ahead of that moment, that whenever it comes, there are virtual school or virtual conversations or virtual classes or automated products are already there in line. So it's a matter of just organically grow it. So we will create our own schools.
And not just in the space of schools, you do a lot of business consultations. And people come to you with respect to big deals. Yeah. So how does that really work? Because you're influencing the mindset of some very influential people.
You need to know how the business works. The business world is a very different world than a personal life is. So I've been a part of that. I've had my software company. I'm launching a international watch trading company. I have had my extensive stints as leadership roles in GE, in Dell, in Bank of America, in AT&T, in JCPenney. All these companies have given me that little sense of structures, how the leadership, corporate leadership works and things, how business works and things. Now with almost, like I said, it's not 30,000 clients yet. It's about 21,000 plus clients in 49 countries. A lot of them are businessmen. So understanding them and talking to them day in and day out for decades now, we understand that not only how they are working or how they are maturing as a business person, but how the business market itself matures. So when you're in access to all of that, you have that coming on a platter to a businessman who's sitting across me with his charts, because that chart kind of tells you everything. And then you have all of this put together and that becomes a business consultation. So I've always had every business consultation is a very fruitful one, because there is so much to discuss intellectually as well, understanding the environment as well. Numerology obviously is going to be threadbare by a business tycoon, let's say. They want to understand the intricate part of it. And the long and short of this is, it excites me the most because then it creates, I empower one person, he has 300 families to feed. So it empowers a whole section of society. So yeah, I get very excited about doing business consultation. I've been doing it for many years now.
So when it comes to the world of relationships, right? Relationships and marriages, astrology may gunas are matched. There are various other factors that people go through. And yet you see so many marriages failing, like miserably failing, right? But the role of numerology looks into certain elements quite pragmatically. How does one really go about that in matching charts? Because
In my language, there are 75% charts that have been slated by astrologer that they'll fail, can be remedied. I have no such kind of limitations in my head that when these two people are there. So first, let me answer your question of why the marriages are breaking up, in spite of the fact that Panditji had done all the matchmaking. All power to that knowledge, no questions about it.
Right.
It's a science. The economic conditions have changed.
Right.
It used to be a family oriented joint family system.
Right.
So even if there was an issue between the couple, the family will pull in and then it'll hold the case study. It was a taboo not to have broken relationships. It was a big social taboo. With the people moving out of their cities and the couples working both ways, the dinks that have come in, the whole definition of family is changed. The definition of family is all about, do I have my enough space? Do I get my enough respect? Do I get my enough love? Is there social security, financial security? Is there social standing with my spouse?
Right.
It's become a deal. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not making any comment. It's a deal now. A marriage is no more that thing of, wow, we have to get married, and it's like, so you know that you're going to get very lonely in life, so you need a marriage. And then it goes on to those parameters which are easily, if not met with, are questioned. Eventually, the whole structure of marriage falls. It's got nothing to do with the planets not being matched. They are all there. They're already being matched. Your aspirations changed. Your environment changed. Now, when it comes to numerology, and that's what gives me hope that one can remedy every broken relationship to a large extent. So, when I am doing marriage compatibility, I'm looking at the assets the both of them have, and then clearly bringing out the issues.
Right.
So when you list out the issues between the husband and wife and you sit there and you list out the issues, then obviously, like I said, information is the biggest remedy. The couple knows what to work on. The couple knows what their positives are and what their challenges are. When you feed them with that kind of information through numbers, being stranger to them, because I would be a stranger, the credibility is amazing.
Right.
They can relate to those issues, and those are issues which are material issues. They are environmental issues which can easily be solved by astrologers or numerologists. You need to learn how to put it together, but it doesn't have to go to a point where in saying, man, this marriage cannot be, unless the couples want it, of course, that this marriage cannot be remedied. It doesn't have to go to a point to, I mean, almost to 75-80%, and that's been my success rate anyways.
So there's a child counselor at play. There's a marriage counselor at play. You're talking in terms of business consultancy, and then what its role in its entire significant role in health when it comes to. So there's a lot of fear mongering when it comes to health, right? And
there is no fear mongering. Their stress is real. The lifestyle is bad. Your fast food is junk anyways. Your environment is polluted. Your time to sleep is lessened and lessened all the time. There's no fear mongering. This is real.
Right.
The only way it's going to help you with numerology is to bring the spiritual part of it out. You have to get the person awakened to their spiritual potential. The conversation that I have, which is a counseling conversation with every life reading that I do, is the spiritual awakening or the potential spiritual awakening of the person. Once he touches the nerve that's inside him, anyways was always there, they start to move differently. They de-stress themselves. You need to just understand the nature of that planet, which chords to touch, which chords to stir up, and then when you stir up the spiritual, the material automatically happens anyways.
That's absolutely fantastic, because even with respect to remedies, you're helping them rely on themselves. So many other courses that you conduct, whether it's angel invocation or it's money magnet, or you talk in terms of gemstones, all of that has its own merit. But but it has in the past gotten such a bad rep that for various reasons people are wearing 10 gemstones on their fingers, And there is a lot of fear
Yeah,
mongering with respect to
the
that.
bad news about the gemstones is that they don't grow on trees. They're expensive, and then the worst news is that it becomes a big business. So the reality is that gemstone is a science. Gemology is an absolute science. It works as any other sciences would. So if you have a crystal as a gemstone, it will infuse the sun rays or the vibgyor of the sun
Right.
rays and infuse the relevant light into your bloodstream, and that's how it affects. Because gemstones are what? They're minerals only, na. So when you're infusing the body with the minerals, the right minerals, they work. The nature with which the opaque stones work, like a coral, is they absorb the body heat when the sun rays fall on them. Sun rays doesn't, you don't have to be in sun for the sun rays to fall. When the sun warms up the day, the gemstones will absorb the heat from the body, make the body clearer and healthier, and then they pale away or they break away and things like that. It is always there. The science was
Right.
always there. Now when you put it together into the fact that who's selling this science, that's the question. So the question is not the science, the question is the practitioner of it. So if the person doesn't even understand what is he doing and why is he giving those stones for, and loads you up with expensive stones. By the way, there is an inexpensive option to most of the expensive stones. Most of the expensive, not all of them. I would say yellow sapphire is yellow sapphire and emerald is an
Right.
emerald. Beyond that, there's always going to be an inexpensive option to an expensive gemstone. People don't even know, and people don't even tell you because then there's no money being made. So that the malpractice doesn't mean the science doesn't exist. It definitely exists. I use it most extensively. I have my son's wearing it, my
Right.
wife's wears it, my sisters wear it, my friends, my school, my alumni. I use it to them where my credibility is at stake. Of course it works.
But how much does it work?
Oh, very
Like,
much.
does it?
Almost like a 20-23%. 20-23% when you are empowering it with pujas. So the puja is not about kuch puja karke isko kar diya. The systems to it. So we have a whole structure out there in Jaipur where I do it. But maximum 23%. Don't work after sunset, and so you can always take them off after sunset and all that. And then when you put it together in an ecosystem, which is the name, the karmic debts, the colors, the food, the people who will matter with you, the dates, the day, whole lot of things are put together, then the gemstones also work to their full potential. But just wearing a gemstone is not going to work, or it has very limitation. I'm not wearing anything. I'm telling you it works because I've had that. Like you said that I do angels. I do a lot of pujas. Now I don't even do pujas. I just walk and I talk to my God in my head, and I know what's going to happen in that sense of speaking. So, well, my son still, I have to, and then my wife does. But at the end of the day, every of these remedies were, if looked at as science and with a curious student's mind, they work. They work.
So one has to have faith as a pre.
One has to have patience to first find the right person or the right guide in life. You know, when you go for an operation of heart, you know how much time you take to find the right doctor? You go with that reference and that reference, you go to the heart specialist and you figure out how much R&D you do. When you go to a lawyer, how much R&D you do. And in the world of astrology and numerology, just keep going to everyone. Every second person, you just walk in, oh wow, there's an astrologer here, let's talk. It's not good. The people sitting in the malls, man. You can't have this science, such high level science, being sitting in malls and doing it in Diwali melas, and you are completely disregarding the power of that science and making it into. So when you are not spending enough time doing your R&Ds and finding the right numerologist, you will suffer. The same thing, and if you don't find a lawyer, you will suffer. So you find the lawyers, you find the numerologists, you'll be fine. Take that effort because it's going to affect your life years and years and years to come ahead.
Right. And so when we talk about the simplicity or the convolution of the science, people come up with one lucky number, your date of birth, your sun sign, and that just becomes the gospel truth.
Yeah, so that's a hook.
So how does it really work? Like, is that the only element one has to rely on? And
No, it's just a hook. It's just a hook. It just saves people. The people who are just focusing in their whole intent is to sell you the right cell phone number, and it may just show you some interesting results. Oh wow, he said this combination of this numbers within my cell phone will give you this nature. Yeah, so it does. Okay, so now does it take away your karmic debts? No. Does it take you away from or put you in line with your destiny? No. It's just at the max build up a little luck for you here and there. Now the bigger thing is, and the bigger power is, when you are in question, when you are in doubt in your life, And this is really important.
Hmm.
When you're in doubt that, should you do something like that? Should you follow your numbers? Should you follow your colors? Remember, these are representatives of planets. Anything that you do is planets, right? And then there is a god above the planet. Planets are emissaries of the gods. A planet is not dominating a Vishnu Mahesh or a Shiv. They are the emissaries of Vishnu Mahesh. So when you start connecting to your God in your heart, in your spiritual, you'll find your way. In that sense of faith in your God, whomsoever you are, you are a prayer of, you are in prayer of, whatever is a religion, it would not matter. We are the ones who built up religions, we are the ones who built up these walls. The gods laugh at us. But if you are in that sense, in sync with your God, the planets will come or the right person will come. It's okay also to be that simplistic in your approach in life. So faith moves the mountains. It is not said out of jest. And to have faith, you need to have a sense of surrender. You can't have a sense of surrender if you don't understand that so far all your life has been taken care of in a way that you never thought it would be. You're still in that frame that you're still alive and you still have the faculties to live your soul's journey on earth today, tomorrow, because you're alive and listening to me. When you're alive and all these years you've already been there, so obviously there's someone who's trudging you or holding you and taking you there. Now have that faith from there. When you start surrendering to that power, your faith will rise.
Right.
You can live your life simplistically like that also. Why not?
Correct. Because awareness is our biggest protection. And when we want to be aware of a certain thing, it gives us the wisdom and the knowledge to be able to even experience. And that experience leads the way to faith. But similarly, sir, when you're talking in terms of experiences, we would love to hear some anecdotes, some experiences of your students, of your life, in terms of how this has really, been something where now today you smile at and say,
yeah, it's never been a journey. I mean, it's like, journey never ends. So it's always going to be a unique experience. So initial days of my experience and all that, when I started to do that, so I had a call from one of my clients. He says, I'm going to jump off the balcony. I'm going to put your name to it because you're not coming in and helping me. Like, imagine that now. So it's last like, you didn't know what to do at that time. I was like, I can laugh it off today. But when you start looking at, when you put your heart out and you push against those circumstances, you really start taking those steps forward. First is to protect yourself, perhaps, but eventually to help and counsel.
Right.
So that led me to that and those kind of incidents. Now there are, very interestingly, there are some name numbers, for example, which can be very beneficial, let's say, to a Parkinson's person. So there are numbers which I can add up and say, hey, you know what, this can work for the Parkinson's to reduce the speed or things like that. So that's one. That's the health all apart. Then there are these numbers which are very, very good for money part. Now they are not combinations like, oh, this and this combination will bring you that. No, it cannot happen like that because your own chart stands right in the middle of it, which is all your planets put together. So you just can't have a combination of this and this and say, okay, money will come. So you can have a mantra and a combination of a name number or a number. So then you start saying that, okay, I have to have this name, money name. I have to have the minimum planets. So this name number will suit this planet, this number will suit this planet for money. So the money is an output that you want. And then I have to have a mantra with it or a switch word with it. When you start putting these 3-4 lines together, that's how Money Magnet came as a program out. But then the whole thing is about is, oh, you want money, so everybody wants money. 8 billion humans on earth, who doesn't want money? And interestingly, every civilization has a money god. Everyone. The Japanese have the money gods. It's in Christian. Every angel, there's an angel in the Christian world, abundant here. So every civilization, old one, has a money god. You have the laughing Buddha and all that stuff. Why? Because it's the highest form of power, energy on earth. It's not greed. So when you're looking at the civilizations also endorsed the power of money, then you start looking at what else can you do to bring those powers up in terms of karmas.
Right.
What do you mean by that? You need to get your mind, body ready to receive the blessings first. What karmas are you going to create to elevate to a point where of this 8 billion humans, only you are the chosen one will get the money? There are only 3,000 billionaires. That's it. 3,000 out of 8 billion. And everybody wants to make, and everybody dreams of their Rolls Royces and all. Why? So when you start looking at the karmas, which means your body, mind has to be ready and spiritually attuned to making and retaining money. So making money is easy one, but Lakshmi to chanchal hai, wo to rukti nahi hai, wo to aake chali jati hai. So then what is the secret behind retaining money? So then you start looking at that and start exploring that, and then so it just grows on and on. So you build up a program around money for all these years, because that used to be and then COVID also actually is a pretty much bigger instrument to do that, because people were out of money. Then the third, so that's what's about health, and then there was about money part.
Right.
Then this comes about a relationship. The last part of it is like, you can't grow in this world if you don't know how to handle people. Your reputation precedes you wherever you go. No matter who you are and how well you're doing today, 100%, I'm telling you now, it'll fizzle out in 3 to 5 years. The best of the guys, the best of the professionals, when you see them in a cycle, I'm talking about numerology cycles now, a cycle doesn't last more than 9 years. So if you ever hang a damn good period of life, if you're really good, you're in that 9-year cycle. Once that 9-year cycle goes, another one comes in, and then the yearly numbers come in and the other cycles come in, you are a different situation. You wouldn't know how to handle that if you haven't built up your reputation, if you haven't built up or not burned bridges, if you haven't done the right karmas. So guiding them through those 9 years, through the yearly numbers and stuff like that, understanding, telling them what the compatibility actually means. It's not about, you can't put it cast in stone like, oh, you know what, 4 and 8 is not compatible. Yes, it is not, but there is always going to be a time cycle where they can be compatible. If you were looking for a partnership, and that partnership you can guide, say, look, buddies, you want to start this business, between the two of you, you have no choice, do it for the next 5 years, and then you part your ways. Every venture capitalist has an exit clause. You have your own. That exit clause comes out of numerology. So every partnership will succeed. If you need to, if you know how to see a chart, there's nothing called incompatible numbers. It's wrong information. You need to understand the charts. So when you started doing relationships like that, you started making business consultations like that, it worked. It worked. So it's all an experiment.
So you're remedying, but in a way, you're also sort of providing the awareness with respect to how the timeline is and what you can best do.
Everything has an expiry date. Even a gemstone has an expiry date. A relationship has an expiry date. Everything has an expiry date. It's not made in eternity.
Yeah.
So if there is no expiry date, there will be one of you will be going away anyway. So there's an expiry date to everything, na? Agar sab kuch expiry date hai, so what is a big intention is to maximize today. Maximize what you can in terms of logical stuff, resources wise, mind wise, happiness wise, whatever is your key, this thing. So when you are in that frame of mind that I have to make it work, it'll happen. You can make it work. So that's where the superstition goes. That's where the incapacity, trying to decapacitate the person, that all goes away. Everything in numerology is empowerment, empowerment, empowerment. तो हो गया यार, कितना और पूछोगे यार?
ठीक है, अब I think final thoughts के लिए we can just do the separate video, right? कि I can just speak independently, है ना? But like I think you don't want to talk about numbers at all from 0 to 9.
I'm in a very high level conversation. नहीं, numbers हमें मजा भी नहीं आएगा. ये खत्म हो जाएगा.
So having obtained a PhD not only has exemplified a certain amount of credibility in the world of numerology, but for us, a lot of students across the world, you have given us the voice of reason. And we would love to hear you speak about some final thoughts. I know we've had you here, sitting with us, and we've really dug your brain, but we would love some final thoughts from you.
Well, it's very, it's very clear. It's the way I live my life. It's like, no matter what the situation that you are in, it's empowered situation. It was meant to be. You created it. I created it. Our subconscious mind is the creator of all our situations. Planets nudge us towards it. So to say that you want to blame someone, you want to owe it to somebody else, and things are not working in your favor, all that is absolute nonsense. We created it all. First, start owning your life.
Right.
Look in the mirror and say, okay, so I am the creator of my power, or the creator of my disaster so far. Once you have accepted that in the mirror, get on to a good numerologist. Understand what you were here for, understand the blueprint. Once you understand the blueprint and see where you are today, away from it or aligned to it, start putting up an action plan to it. It may take you a month or two to get there, but it's only a month or two out of a whole lifetime. But once you do that, it starts to empower you, and then being the part of the family that you are, or friend circle that you are, it starts to empower that. I mean, it's like, do it as a system, do it as a structure. Trust me, you will be very surprised how life eventually turns out for you. That's the whole idea.
How beautiful. And although there can never be an end to how much we can learn from you, sir, but we're really up on the hour. So, with the promise that I'm going to make the efforts to get you back here to answer a lot more questions for us, making us a little more wiser. For now, that should be all. So, until then, stay open, learn, unlearn, and continue to grow.
Learn, unlearn, awesome.